Hello, everybody. It's great privilege and pleasure to be part of FSI community and to share with you today this, in my opinion, very interesting and important topic of physical preparation for tournament competition. I will try to share with you the Croatian story at the World Cup and try to explain, of course, in this limited time, what we did in order to have certain success. Of course, success depends on many things and many variables, and these are just a small part of them. First of all, when you work with, for example, national team or when you prepare for tournament competition, you have to be very smart about choosing optimal strategy. This is definitely number one goal, how to choose optimal strategy. Why? Because usually in this type of preparation periods, you don't have a lot of time. If you have 3 weeks, you are lucky. So in 3 weeks, what can I do for my team to have them in optimal physical fitness? I have to think about many things, but of course, I have to be very selective. And this selectiveness is something that's going to be important in this lecture today. Of course, there's no time for great amount of stress, great amount of loading, some high volume cycles, because in that case, that's good stress. That can be smart stress, but that's stress that can cause adaptation later on. So if I have only 3 weeks, I have to be really smart in applying the optimal stress, because everything we do as coaches revolves around stress and adaptation. Or we can say everything revolves around how to apply optimal fatigue, smart fatigue for my players' bodies to have optimal adaptation when I need it. We do this every week. In the club, in the season, we do this every week. But now here, in this type of preparation, we have to be especially smart and especially it's delicate situation, and we have to apply a really, really smart stress on our players. This is just the general strategy. Now, the next level can be, which abilities am I talking about? These are just 3 basic human abilities. You all know strength, speed, endurance. Of course, in football, we like combination of first 2, which is power. And then we like combination of that power with the third one, with endurance. We call it in science repeated sprintability. We call it many, many, many ways. Coaches in football call it some other ways, but basically that's it. If we want to be really simple, we can say that that's the most important, actually that's the only important ability in football. But it's not that simple. If I want optimal repeated sprintability, first I need to be able to perform one activity explosively and with optimal movement mechanics. And then after that, I have to be able to do the same thing in more and more fatigue within one game, and of course, between different matches in tournament competition, which is, of course, a little bit different than the club season. So next question that I have to ask myself is, which abilities are important for my players? But here, intentionally, you can see the singular player, not plural, because another important word in this lecture is going to be individualization. So we need to apply all of these things that we talk about first individually and then in team environment. That's why, because of those problems, we have to come up with some solutions. This photo is intentional here because the whole coaching staff of Croatian national team, we try to look at this process as hot air balloon. And in this basket, in hot air balloon, you shouldn't have anything unnecessary. So everything unnecessary has to go out. When I say unnecessary, that means all unnecessary methods, all unnecessary some types of communication sometimes, some obligations outside of the pitch, all unnecessary things have to go out of the basket in order for this hot air balloon to rise high. So part of these solutions is to be selective with these methods and variables of lifestyle. Other thing is, of course, individualization. Because, for example, in summer of 2018, we had some players who already played 58 games in the season, and we also had players who played only 8 games in the season. We had some players who were injured in the first part of the season, some players in the second part of the season. So we had Of course, it's always like that when you work in national team. Your group of players is not on the same level of health and fitness. So you have to be really smart, and that's why individualization was and always is a very important word for us. And of course, after these two comes control. To control what we planned, to control what the process is, and maybe we can add some other thing to this control. We like to do it discreetly. So maybe I should put also in this presentation discrete control, because on top level, we have experiences that players don't like too much of a hands-on control, but we believe that discrete control is something that's very, very needed for us to be able to have optimal atmosphere, to be able to control the training process and lifestyle, and to be able to perform on top level when we need it. And we need it, of course, in every match when you talk about big competitions. So another part, another level of solutions when we go just one step deeper is if we talk about health. Today I will address a little bit of stability and mobility and how we do it. And of course, after that, the whole continuum of neuromuscular qualities, from strength to speed to agility, which of course makes sense when you look at the progression to the football pitch. And definitely something that incorporates all of this is endurance. We can talk about maybe specific endurance, which is of course in correlation with before mentioned repeated sprintability. So these are the components, parts of the solution. And of course, within all of these, we needed to be simple enough, but also we needed to be precise enough to find the best ways possible for us first to be healthy, and then after that to be able to have good performance on the pitch. The preparation and tournament, in terms of numbers, looked like this. We were together for 52 days. We had only 2 days off. And what's important information is that in these 52 days, we performed 39 team training sessions, but also 30 individual morning training sessions. And plus, if you look at these 39 team training sessions, and if you know that, of course, all team training sessions start with individual work before the session and always end with some individual work after the session, then if you combine all that, you come up to the conclusion that we spent almost equal time working individually and in team environment. So even though football is a team sport, we tend to look at physical conditioning in football as individual discipline. So I think this is one of the important messages of my lecture, that football, physical conditioning, physical preparation is more and more individual discipline because of the needs, because of the tasks of different players, because of their training history, health history. That's why we look at it really, really in individual way. Also, the last point in this slide, 13 flights, demanded that we take care of the traveling protocols. And in these protocols, we actually tend to listen to psychology more than biology, because in many occasions we chose to fly back to the camp right away after the game. So even though maybe if you look at it from biological standpoint, it's not perfect, but we chose to sleep in our own camp, to come, of course, late at night or early in the morning. But we, after that, chose to have 48 hours of really properly individualized recovery protocols. So when we talk about testing and monitoring, in previous years, I was fortunate enough to be part of these team's processes for 5+ years, and I know all of the players for a long time, which was really beneficial for me, because we chose to be as non-invasive as we could. And again, individual approach was important for us in terms of testing and monitoring. We chose only the most important procedures, and we had to develop some kind of sports intelligence system. We needed a lot of data, but all of the data that we usually collect we don't like to collect data which is not going to help us in decision making. So we try to collect only the things which are going to help us to make smarter decisions. Sometimes during the World Cup, of course, the most productive meetings between me and medical staff were actually between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. When physios finish their work at 1 a.m., we sit down, we drink some wine, we eat some prosciutto, and we discuss also some important topics. So that's how we try to create the family atmosphere, and that word family was actually very important for us, but not only family with having fun, but family which is really productive. It's not easy to create a productive group of people, and that's why our first head coach and everybody in charge were excellent in managing all the communication levels and all the things, all the data that we thought was important. And we, again, tried to be very selective with the data, and we tried to apply that data really, really individually and really precise. So injury prevention, of course, we can talk about injury prevention in many different ways. And we really tried to be smart about load management, of course. That was the first thing. About physical abilities, of course, in that short period of time, you don't have enough time to significantly improve many things. But what you definitely can improve is specific endurance. That's why we chose to be really detailed about load management, and we everything else we did really, really individually, specifically the lifestyle, which we of course had enough data about all the players, about their habits, and we tried to respect their habits in terms of lifestyle, in terms of recovery, and we believe that in that way we helped the whole program, that players believed in the system more, the players had more confidence, the players felt better, and at the end, it resulted in their top level performance, of course. Locomotor health, we have the system in which we diagnose and treat stability and mobility. Of course, the system is much more complex than this slide, but this is just the basic overview of some parts of the body. And even this overview, if you go a little bit deeper, then if we talk about maybe the most important joint in a football player's body, which is hip, for example, then we can talk about hip in many different ways, because hip not only that needs mobility, it needs great stability and great strength of the muscles that surround it. But this is just the first level of overview of our stability and mobility concept, in which we try to, of course, first assess and then treat some of the things which we think are important. Of course, you all know the answer to this question: who has the best core? The answer is really simple. The answer is everybody has the best core for their own job, for their own task. So in everything we do, we go from functionality, and we go from real application. And of course, when we talk about core, aesthetics are least important. And of course, function is something that's crucial. And function is not always visible from the outside. And we like to, with some players, we like to make some motor control changes. We like to do some synchronization changes, not as much structural changes, because of course there's no time for them. We assess usually deficits, compensations, imbalances, asymmetries. What I think is important to say right now is that on top level, with top level players, even if you see certain asymmetries, for example, you have to be really soft in correcting them, because top level players, even if they have some kind of imbalances or asymmetries, they became functional within their dysfunction. So if you go aggressively into changing that, maybe you can do some damage. So my advice is, on top level, with top level players, even if you see some deficits or imbalances or asymmetries, to be really soft and to take it step by step, to implement new methods, new exercises, new intensities, in really, really slow progression. And even that slow progression is going to yield results, definitely, because our body, even though sometimes it's really smart, but sometimes we can trick it, because my muscle on cell level doesn't know what's Champions League finals. My muscles only know that something attacked them, some stress was applied, and that stress is repeating twice a week. So our body knows what to do to recover, our body knows what to do to adapt and to become better. So in everything new we do, everything new, even though it's maybe not high intensity, even though it's simple exercise, but it's something new. Everything new is causing my body to adapt, which is good. That's why I do it. But I have to be really careful about how aggressive I want to be with some new methods and new exercises, new intensities with my top level players. As I said, some of them became functional within their dysfunction. So that's why I need to take it step by step. We applied this in different ways. Of course, for some players, I created individualized corrective programs, which they did as some kind of prep for the training session. And of course, within the team warm-up, we also did all the important things. So within the team warm-up, we can say that sometimes we like to give the soft antibiotics, which is going to help everybody with some things. So this procedure, this protocol of warm-up always included the basic stability and mobility concept, considering the most important parts of the body. On this slide also, of course, you can see many different environments, and as coach you have to be sometimes creative, because it's not perfect. You have to adapt to what you have. And sometimes, of course, we have to use the same room for our gym and also for our meetings. So sometimes it's meeting room / gym / playroom / something else. But, that can be also helpful. That can be productive for creating the optimal atmosphere and family atmosphere. So sometimes we even like to use the same room for different things. When we talk about strength training, the story is, again, pretty simple. Again, it all starts with individual approach. And we have to realize that development is not really possible with the tournament competition. In the season, of course, it's possible. We always choose exercises based on movement, not the muscle. In my opinion, the top level football player in his career, he doesn't have to do any single set of biceps exercise, which is single joint exercise, but he has to do a lot of pulls. So if he pulls, biceps is going to work synergistically, definitely, and it's probably going to be enough for his biceps. So theoretically, he doesn't have to do this type of exercises, but he has to be concerned about the movements. And what we like to do in every session is some type of squat, some type of deadlift, and of course, some types of pushing and pulling exercises, depending on the player's needs, habits, position, of course, time of day, time of week, considering the game and everything else. Also, for some players, I like to create 10 progressive individual training sessions that we are going to use in some period of time. But for other players, it's individual strategies, especially considering match day, -5, 4, 3, and so on. Some players have their habits and they have their own programs that they do for a few years now. So it was my job to have all the data. It was my job to be in contact with their personal trainers, with the coaches from the clubs, and to control and to give the players what they are used to. If we do that, then they're going to have optimal performance, which was the most important and practically only important thing for us in this campaign. When we talk about speed and agility training, which is another part of this continuum of neuromuscular training, as we talked about, we did it every day. So except recovery day, we did it every day, and it was different minutes. During preparation, we had progression, and in tournament, we had fixed sets of drills, considering match day -3, 2, and 1. Of course, we control the sprint distances and accelerations and decelerations. We try to be simple with GPS data also. We only follow the most important things. And of course, not only VO2 max was important for us, but also 2 millimole threshold. And that's why we approached to all of this individually. Some players did individual capillarization training. Some players did individually RSA, some short intervals at the end of the training session. We focused a lot on specific endurance training, and we had optimal loading in tactical work. Of course, we controlled everything by the GPS and heart rate monitors. When we talk about recovery, interesting thing here is science says one thing and practice sometimes says something a little bit different. We tried to implement many of these methods. We tried to, of course, be as individualized as we could. And we thought and we saw the good effects of some methods of recovery, which maybe science will say so-so. So we try to combine the knowledge of science and to combine the habits of the players and to give them what they needed in order for them to have optimal recovery. Of course, for the future, maybe some recovery topics, sympathetic parasympathetic balance, which we think is important. I think this is area of research which is interesting and in future could be important. Focus, relaxation, variability, and variability was also an important word for us, especially in recovery. And interval training as also combination of variability and importance for recovery training session. So some performance solution. Maybe I'm already boring you with individual approach, but I really think it's crucial. I think in future, long-term education is going to be important, especially resistance training culture, which in some leagues, in some countries is already on top level. Combined with that is long-term strength and power development. And of course, the most important thing, transfer to skills. And on top level, also recovery protocols, because probably in the future, we will see more and more games played in the season. We had many challenges. We didn't have a lot of time. And we had actually not very big coaching staff. On this photo, you see all the coaches, football coaches, goalkeeping coaches, analysts, scouts, and physical conditioning staff, only 8 people. But we had excellent communication, which was very important for us. And we had one word that followed us the whole summer. That word in Croatian is obitelj. In English is family, of course. It's not easy to create that, but if you create it, then many things are possible. In this short period of time, I tried to give you as much information as I could. I'm really looking forward to Q&A section, which is coming next. Again, it's great to be part of FSI community, and I hope to see you soon in many other FSI events.